Hello and welcome back to the Battle Room. I'm the Battle Room, and today we have a very important news update. So, the Regulation I rule set has dropped, which is very exciting. This will be the format for the remainder of the 2025 season. Most notably, this will be the format for both NAIC and Worlds. So this is the Worlds fucking format. We can finally start practicing for Worlds. So exciting. But the bad news, this format is double restricted. So for those who do not know, the legendary Pokemon are considered restricted, except for the mythicals. You're not allowed to use those at all. But the legendary Pokemon, the box arts, are considered restricted, and we'll be playing with two of them per team. You're allowed to bring to team preview and I guess to battle. But yeah, so it's two restricted. We just played one restricted, now we're at two. So what's really frustrating about this is that in 2019 we had a restricted format. That's one. In there was obviously COVID. No one was playing Pokemon then in real life tournaments, so there's no Worlds. So we have one restricted format so far. And then 2018, by the way, was just national decks, whatever. No one cares. 2023, when we came back, was in London. That was restricted as well. And then we had 2024. Yippee! No restricteds. Our first non-restricted format in 2 years. And then last year, we also had restricteds for Worlds. Cool. So now we're 3-1 in the past 4 Worlds, and now with this one, we jumped to 4-1. In 5 Worlds, we've had 4 of them being restricted formats. Now, I really fucking hate restricted Pokemon. I think they're really unfun. They're super centralizing, and it creates like it's not Pokemon to me, because what I love about Pokemon, like I think of Reg H most recently, because that was the we went restricteds, Reg H, restricteds. So we've played like in the past year, we're gonna end up being we're gonna have played like fucking what is that, like 9 months of restricteds and then 3 months of non-restricteds, like Jesus fucking Christ. But what I don't like about restricteds is it just gets very matchup roulette-y. Obviously, there are matchups in non-restricted formats as well, whether you're playing with Megas or Dynamax or whatever, but it feels like it's just all exacerbated, right? Like, you're like, oh shit, dude, I really suck versus Kyogre, or you're like, man, I really hope I don't play Palkia. I'm specifically really weak to... No, Palkia is a really bad example. Let's just say you're like, hey, I hate Zacian. I'm a Miraidon player. I hate playing against Zacian. And then you sit down and you're like, oh shit, that's a Zacian. I lose. This is hard, you know? And like, obviously credit to the Zacian player for coming up and using a crazy rogue pick, but it's just like such a frustrating format. I've been personally really frustrated with Reg G. I played 2 tournaments, and my last 3 tournaments have come down to matchups. And it's like, hey, maybe I should have prepped for Lunala at Worlds. That's my bad. You know, I was using Zamazenta. Maybe I needed a Lunala matchup. Or maybe I auto-lose to Volcarona. I went into Worlds knowing that, I pulled Volcarona. So it's like 2 of my losses were just like auto losses. And it just felt like unfun. Obviously, maybe it's my team building. Maybe there's flaws in how I'm preparing and stuff of that nature too. But I just think that restricteds kind of make that problem bigger, right? Like, if there is a bad matchup, sometimes it's the best play is to just dodge it. Obviously, you have to play well and all that shit, but I just find them really, really frustrating. And what I also really don't like about playing restricted formats is the way the games are played, right? Especially in a double restricted format, 90% of the time, you're going to bring both restricteds. And if you don't bring one of them, you have to have a really good fucking reason not to. So most of the time, your 2 of your Pokemon are already locked in team preview before I even sit down. I'm like, yeah, I'm bringing Zacian plus Kyogre 100% of the time, right? That's just how it is. You have to bring them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Those guys are fucking broken. I'm bringing them, right? So that part sucks. And then you're really just picking between 2 guys. A lot of the games have to end up playing out a similar way. It's very, like, linear and very like line heavy, like, oh, I do this, if he leads this, I have to do this to counter that. It's very like, obviously that's how Pokemon is played. When there aren't restricteds, I do feel like the power levels aren't as high, so you're able to consistently come up with different and unique ways to play the game. Like, I remember specifically in Reg H, I was using a Garchomp Golden Go team, which I thought was really fun and really cool, and sometimes I would really lean into the Garchomp mode, spam Earthquake, see what I could do, but sometimes I wasn't forced to do that. I was like, you know what? Maybe I can finesse this guy with a setup strat with my Golden Go. And it just felt kind of, you know, you have more options. Whereas in Restricted, it's like, well, do I set up my Shadow Rider or do I press Electro Drift? Those are my options. So I have 2 strong Pokemon. The rest suck. I do think that without Dynamax, it is a less oppressive, because the last time we played double restricted was in the Dynamax format, which back then it was like, okay, there's a Zacian usually on one of the teams, and he kills the Dynamax Pokemon, and then you kind of have to finesse the other guy, and usually end up having to max your own other restricted that wasn't Zacian. Like in a Kyogre versus Zacian mirror, it was like, oh, I'm gonna be maxing Kyogre, and I'm gonna keep Zacian good, and it just felt very linear. Where I do think, like in this one with Terra, there are ways that you can finesse and move around. They're also not doubling their HP, which is like, thank God. Like dealing with a Groudon or Kyogre that had double HP was fucking crazy. So like that part of the game is a little bit different, but having to deal with the horses again, Koraidon, Miraidon. I do think all the new legendaries are the good ones. Maybe Turtle. But like you really are just like, these guys are the best. Wow, they did him dirty, they didn't give him a Sprite. These guys are the best, and then Zam, right? It's literally like, and then I think Lunala is actually really good as well. So it's literally just Lunala, maybe Zacian, I think Zacian could be good, Zam, and horses and Koraidon, Miraidon. So it's just kind of, I don't know. I think it lacks a lot of creativity. I do think there is some really creative choices you can make. I think you can really, come up with a creative pick that can solve one of your matchups. It can take you deep in a tournament. And I do think that's a very rewarding part of the format. But playing this format is like, it's like true insanity. You do the same thing over and over on ladder. You're like, all right, let me test these lines. Let me make sure that if I lead Koraidon and do this, I can get through this situation. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Regulation I. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I am going to gaslight myself and fully commit to trying to be the best I can be at this format, because I want to do well. I want to win Worlds. I want to win Nats, blah, 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 whatever, right? I want to succeed in this format, so I have to embrace it fully. But it's disappointing. I'm really disappointed that 5 of the last Worlds, like literally for the last 6 years, since 2019, we've played 4 of them being restricted, and then even that one Worlds that wasn't restricted felt kind of bullshit, because the rules it was the only tournament in that format, and it literally, the rules changed 2 months before. They're like, yeah, we're playing Reg D, you guys can use Urshifu, I guess. It just felt so random, and I'm just fucking disappointed. I like playing this game a lot. I have a ton of fun playing, and I'm not gonna stop playing. I'm still gonna continue. I'm gonna have fun. I'll play it out. But it is just really disappointing, because I had so much fun with Regulation H personally. I know people didn't love it, but I had fun with it because it wasn't this restricted bullshit that I was so used to. And now we're back to restricted, and I was like, you know what? I can power through. I can suffer. And I actually took a break. I decided not to go to any more tournaments because I just don't like this format. I played one Regulation G tournament. I said, you know what? I'm going to hope the next one isn't double restricted so I can be pleasantly surprised and get back to playing the game I love. But alas, here we are, double restricted. I do think it could be kind of fun. I do think that there is a little bit more nuance to 2 restricted. It is a little bit less matchup heavy, because like 1 restricted can be really brutal. Like you hit the bad restricted and you're sitting there, you're like, holy fuck, what am I supposed to do? Like if you're playing Hard Trick or Mice Rider, you're like, wow, that's a fucking Kyogre. I'm gonna sign the match slip now. I'll see you guys later, right? There were some of those matchups that just felt truly, truly terrible, or like Zacian Miraidon. There were just some of them that just felt like, oh, the rogue pick is gonna go absolutely nuts now. And yeah, I think it's a little less that way when you do play with double restricted, because you have 2. You can make up for each other's weaknesses. I'm excited to see what kind of duos we can make out of this, what kind of VGC history we're going to do. Obviously, good players do well in these formats. They do extremely well. They're very good, and team building does get really exciting, but usually it is very, very small niche picks that change a matchup, that force something into to react a certain way and to create a good matchup. But Reg I, I'm sorry, for me, huge disappointment. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to be making a ton of Reg I content on the channel. So if you're interested in Reg I, you want some teams, you want some tier lists, I got you covered. Please like, comments, and subscribe. Helps me out a ton. We're trying to get to 5 mil by the end of the week, so get us there. But yeah, so I don't know. Tell me, what do you guys think about Reg I? I personally, a little disappointed, but I'll give it my best try, and I'll try to be open to it, because it's what we got to play for the next 3 months. So we'll see. I do think, off an early analysis here, just from like judging gut feeling, Zamazenta seemed to be the best guy. I saw a ton of these tournaments like prior, because people thought it was going to be this, and it was. I was hopeful it wasn't, but they all thought they played a ton of tournaments, and I checked out the results a little bit. I would peep it here and there. And Zamazenta is absolutely nuts. Obviously, being able to support all of his friends with wide guard, like he is like a premier wide guard user. And I think that he was good. I love Zamazenta in Reg G, but what makes him even better is he's good in Reg G alone. He was winning tournaments back then, but now he just gets to press wide guard for a Shadow Rider, a Miraidon, a Koraidon, whatever restricted you want to use, probably not Koraidon. And he just gets to pop off and go absolutely nuts, which is super exciting. And then also, I think that the horses will be absolutely nuts. That's not too surprising to anyone. But I do think Ice Rider can get a little creative. I'm curious to see where they go with this guy, because I think that it can have a plethora of weird partners. You could pair him with Zam, Miraidon. You can't pair with Shadow Rider. Koraidon, maybe. Yeah, I already said Miraidon. So, yeah, those. Maybe Lunala, maybe Zacian, maybe Solgaleo. I don't know. I also think Lunala has some value. It's pretty good into Zam, and it also gets Wide Guard. Wide Guard is premier in this format. Being able to shut down both the horses, perfection. So I'm curious to see. I also think Koraidon and Miraidon have insane value as well. Being able to boost up their Protomons is really good. Having an Iron Hands that goes nuts. Whether like you're using Miraidon Ice Rider hands, that sounds like a great core. Like the Arubega team with Ice Rider seems really strong. Just stuff like that where you're able to power up the hands, and then you have a hands and an Ice Rider sweeping in Trick Group. Sounds absolutely insane. Or something like Koraidon, I don't know, Shadow Rider. You're able to boost up a Flutter to give yourself speed control, give yourself more an offensive piece, right? And then also Raging Bolt. And then you can also have Shadow Rider there who can, hit all the ghosts. And if they Terra into normal type or something, Koraidon can punish that, much like Zam would. So I think there's a lot of interesting combinations here. I'm not seeing anything too set in stone yet, outside of Zam being the GOAT. That's the thing, is Zamazenta is going to go nuts, and he's going to be the one to watch. I'm curious to see. I'm going to be hitting the lab this week, playing some Reg I, and just kind of feeling it out. Producing some content, because this is a crazy format. We're going to have to learn all the duos and how they work and what's going to be strong. For some reason, I feel like this one will have more fluid duos. I'm hoping. Because in the past, we've had very rigid and restricted, like Ray Ogre, God combo, Zerndon, God combo, right? 2016, there is very little exploration outside of the few duos we had. 2019 was a little bit more exciting, right? We saw Yveltal Ogre do well. We saw Zerndon do well, right? Still good. We saw Ray Ogre win that. We saw Necrozma Groudon get second at Worlds. We saw Lunaludon win, right? So there's a lot more exploration, and I kind of feel like this format will be more like 2019. Whereas like in 2022, again, with Dynamax and stuff, it did felt a little rigid, and it was like, oh, Zacian is kind of the best dog. So it's like Zacian Kyogre, Zacian Groudon, really, really good. And then we saw some Calyrex Zacian as well, which was good. And then we saw Calyrex Palkia was like the other one. But they were very like stuck in their ways, and if you use something like really weird, like Reshiram Groudon, you might get some wins, but it might not push you over the edge. Whereas in this format, I do think you could make some crazy combos. Like, yeah, Miraidon plus Zam sounds good, but also so does Miraidon plus Shadow Rider. It just seems like it could work. So I don't know. It does feel like it could be fluid, and I'm excited to see what duos we come up with. But yeah, overall, I'm a little disappointed with this news, but it is what it is. We have to play this format, and we got to be good at it. So I'm gonna try my best, and we'll hit you guys with some solid content soon. You know that tier list is on its way. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.